Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Look, if you live in a community with a homeowners association, you already know the tension that can instantly bubble up. So today we're totally bypassing the basics and diving straight into the deep end, navigating the incredibly stressful world of HOA disputes. We're going to break down exactly how you can protect your peace of mind and, yeah, your wallet, using the absolute best strategies out there.
Picture this scenario for a second. It's a completely normal Tuesday. You're casually checking your mail and you find a letter from your HOA. But it's not a friendly neighborhood newsletter. Nope. It's an unexpected, massive bill for, say, a $20,000 clubhouse roof that you never even wanted fixed in the first place. Suddenly, you're on the hook for thousands of dollars, and the tension between you and your HOA board just goes through the roof. So what on earth do you do next?
Well, here's our roadmap for today to figure that out. We'll quickly move through the surprise assessment, enter the mediator, mediation versus arbitration, preparing for your session, and finally, the legal reality. Let's get to it.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the surprise assessment.
To really understand why these bills trigger such instant, fiery conflict, we kind of need to separate them from your routine monthly dues. We're talking about a special assessment. This is a sudden, one-time bill for massive projects that simply aren't covered by the HOA's reserve funds. Think along the lines of emergency plumbing after a massive freeze, or huge structural storm repairs.
So, why do these specific bills cause such a massive uproar? Well, it usually comes down to a few very relatable triggers. Often, the amount they're asking for is just shockingly high. Other times, you might look at the proposed project, maybe it's some fancy new landscaping or a gold-plated fountain, and think, we absolutely do not need this. On top of that, homeowners frequently suspect that the board didn't even follow their own rules to set the fee. Or worse, there's this creeping concern that the funds are actually being misused. When you mix bad communication with giant, unexpected costs, a financial issue spreads like wildfire and becomes a total social nightmare.
And that brings us to Section 2, enter the mediator.
Okay, so when communication breaks down entirely and everyone's angry, mediation is essentially your collaborative escape hatch. It's a strictly private, strictly voluntary method. You bring in a trained, neutral third party, and they are there to judge you. They're literally just there to help you and the board talk through the mess. This is exactly how you avoid the massive stress, the wasted time, and the crazy expense of fighting it out in court, all while actually preserving your relationships with your neighbors.
The process itself is pretty fascinating because it's highly structured, but also incredibly flexible. Usually you start in a joint session where everyone calmly lays out their opening statements. Then the mediator splits you up into private, confidential meetings. You literally get your own room, and the mediator shuttles back and forth between you and the board, figuring out what everyone actually wants and helping negotiate a real compromise. It completely shifts the vibe from pointing fingers to actual problem solving. And if you find common ground, you write it up and sign an agreement right then and there. No courtroom, no judge banging a gavel, just clear talk.
Moving right along to Section 3, mediation versus arbitration.
Now, you've probably heard the term arbitration thrown around right alongside mediation. And while it's true that both keep you out of traditional litigation, they are totally different animals. Mediation is a collaborative negotiation. You are actively working together to find a win-win. Arbitration, on the other hand, is basically an adversarial mini-trial. An arbitrator acts like a private judge, listens to all the evidence, and then makes a final decision for you.
When you break it down, the most absolutely crucial difference is control. In mediation, you and the HOA keep your hands on the steering wheel. You control the outcome. In arbitration, you cede that control entirely to the arbitrator, whose only job is to declare a winner and a loser. Plus, mediation keeps your affairs strictly confidential, which is a massive bonus if you don't really want your neighborhood drama ending up on the public record.
Which leads us to Section 4, preparing for your session.
Taking this from theory into practice, you can't just rock up to a mediation table and hope for the best. You need a playbook. First, organize the whole paper trail. I mean, every email, every single letter about the fee, all of it. Second, get some legal advice from an attorney who actually specializes in HOAs to make sure the fee is even legally valid. And finally, figure out your goals. Know your absolute non-negotiables, but also know exactly where you're willing to give a little ground. Remember, compromise is the entire engine of mediation.
Seriously, never walk into one of these sessions blind. You've got to review your HOA's governing documents, the CC&Rs, so you crystal clearly understand your rights and your duties.
Yes, you have a right to demand a clear process and look at the financial records, but let's be real, you also agreed to follow the community rules when you bought the place. Knowing your exact legal standing prevents you from getting steamrolled at the negotiation table.
Finally, let's wrap up with Section 5, the legal reality.
Because the whole mediation process is so friendly, so collaborative, and totally voluntary, a lot of people naturally wonder, does the final agreement actually hold any real weight? Is it just, a gentleman's agreement, or is it legally binding?
The answer is a resounding 100% yes. Take state laws in Kansas, for example. They dictate that your friendly little compromise transforms into a strict, binding contract the literal second it's written down and signed by everyone. It's treated exactly like a commercial contract. If the HOA drops the ball on what they promised, or if you decide not to pay the new amount, the courts will absolutely step in to enforce it. So all that hard work you do in the mediation room, it gives you a rock-solid, lasting legal answer. So, to bring this explainer in for a landing, I want you to lock in these key takeaways. Don't sit around waiting for things to boil over. Act quickly the minute talks break down. Choose mediation to save yourself the grueling nightmare and costs of litigation. Definitely have an attorney look over that final contract before you ink your name. And above all else, keep your eyes on the big picture here, maintaining a healthy, actually livable relationship with the folks next door. So, the next time that dreaded, unexpected bill lands in your mailbox, you've got a really vital choice to make. You have to ask yourself, am I going to gear up for a costly, bitter fight that completely tanks the neighborhood vibe, or am I going to use mediation to build a bridge? The choice and the control is entirely in your hands. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.